In this lesson, we're going to multiply fractions. Our first problem is 3/5 times 2/3. Now, because this problem has relatively low numbers, I'm going to go ahead and use the rule for multiplying fractions, which is just to multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Very simple rule. So 3 times 2 is 6, and that's multiplying my numerators. And 5 times 3 is 15, and that's multiplying my denominators. And that's all there is to multiplying fractions. But you do want to make sure at the end that you simplify your answer to lowest terms. So 6/15 can be simplified because I can divide 6 and 15 by 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. So the final answer to this problem is 2/5. Now we're going to take a look at one more problem. And this problem is 15/28 times 4/5. Now I could simplify right across. Or I'm sorry, not simplify, but multiply right across. So 15 times 4 is 60. And 28 times 5 is 140. Now notice that I'm getting larger numbers, and I do have to simplify. Now this one's not too bad because they both end in a 0, which means that I can divide both of them by 10. And when I divide them both by 10, I get 6/14, which then we now know can both be simplified because they both are divisible by 2, and that gives me 3/7. So my final answer is 3/7. Now when I multiplied across, I had to multiply, get a relatively large numbers, and then simplify twice to get my final answer. There is another way to do this problem, and you're going to find that when you have fractions that have larger numbers, it's easier to simplify within the problem first, because that eliminates having to simplify larger numbers at the end of the problem. Now, when you look at this problem, you might say, well, 15/28 cannot be simplified. They have no common factor. And 4/5 can't be simplified. So that's not possible. However, the rule when working with fractions, when you're multiplying, is that you can simplify any numerator with any denominator. It doesn't have to be the numerator and denominator that are together in the problem. So for example, 15 is in the numerator and 5 is in the denominator. Even though they're not associated with the same fraction, that's okay, as long as one is a numerator and one is a denominator. We know that 15 and 5 have a common factor of 5. So when I divide, 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I've now simplified 15/5 to 3/1, which is just 3. And then I want to look and say, okay, are there any other numerators and denominators that can be simplified? And that answer is yes. 4 is in the numerator and 28 is in the denominator, and they're both divisible by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. So now I have no other numerators or denominators that have common factors, and now all I need to do is multiply. 3 times 1 is 3, and 7 times 1 is 7. So I get an answer of 3/7, which is exactly the same answer that I got when I multiplied across from the beginning. But notice that when I simplified here, I had much smaller numbers to simplify, and it was a little easier. So the rule is that you can simplify within the problem as long as you're simplifying a numerator with a denominator.